Hello, friends. Welcome to .org, the podcast all about how nonprofits tell their stories. I'm your host, Matt Pearl. I was a broadcast journalist locally and nationally for 20 years. Now I run Pearl Impact Media. I help nonprofits and purpose-driven businesses raise money, raise awareness, and separate themselves from the rest through meaningful, memorable, and affordable video storytelling. That's my mission, and an offshoot of that mission is this podcast. Each episode, I chat with a nonprofit leader with a defined, thoughtful, and successful approach to telling their organization's story. This is episode 2, and I am so excited about this one. Recently, I got to work with a client that provides grants and guidance for nonprofits in the climate space, particularly solar and clean energy. And this client wanted a video that spotlighted several of their grantees, which in one case sent me on a cross-country trip from Atlanta, where I live, to the Bay Area to meet a truly impressive nonprofit leader running an equally impressive nonprofit. He is the founder and executive director of RE-volv, Andreas Karelas. Welcome to .org.
Thanks so much, Matt. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, Andreas. Well, the first question is always the toughest for anybody who runs a nonprofit, so brace yourself. I'd like you to tell me about RE-volv, what you do, tell me the RE-volv story, but in 30 seconds or less.
Absolutely. When we look at the energy transition in the United States to clean energy, we know that people don't necessarily see a lot of clean energy in their community in all cases. So RE-volv was started in 2011 to bring solar energy to nonprofit organizations, so schools, churches, homeless shelters, health clinics, food banks, at the community level, and then do as much community engagement and storytelling around those projects so that people in their community all across the country can see the benefits of clean energy locally.
I loved our time together, the short but sweet day that I spent out in San Francisco and Oakland with you and your team. You took me out to one of the churches that you helped put solar on their roof out in Oakland, which was really wonderful. And you could just see the way in which not just you spoke about solar and the importance of clean energy, but the way that the leader and the pastor of this church spoke about it, and the work that you had done, not just as advocates for solar and in a very logistical sense, the work that you do, but also being evangelists for solar and getting those who you serve to become evangelists as well.
Couldn't agree more. And I think, and actually that's one of the things that's exciting about solar. The industry has found, over the last few decades that solar is contagious. There's a ripple effect. So when one solar installation goes in, their neighbor and their neighbor are more likely to go solar. So that really is a big part of our theory of change. When we put solar in a nonprofit, we are really trying to spark that excitement around solar for all of their neighbors.
Well, let me start by saying that the work that you're doing at RE-volv is essential for our communities and for our planet, full stop. But one thing related to that stood out to me, and the main reason that I asked you onto the podcast, is your commitment as an organization to visual storytelling, and particularly video storytelling. For listeners just meeting you here, tell us about RE-volv's approach to video.
Absolutely. And again, I think this goes back to this, really what the underlying mission is of RE-volv, which is we are not trying to install enough solar to, power the country or, reduce all, climate emissions. Our mission is really about getting people to see clean energy in their community so that we can change hearts and minds and get people to feel comfortable with the concept that clean energy works, that it is something that they see, that they're familiar with, that it's not just something they've heard about on the news. And so really the best way to do that is through video. And so we have found from the very beginning that when we're installing solar on a local nonprofit, We want to get that story out to as many people as possible. So we want to ask the nonprofit how they're going to use the energy bill savings that they're getting from going solar. We want to ask them about how that's going to benefit the community members. We want to ask them about what was their thought process that went on in their consideration about going solar. And that way you're really allowing these local nonprofits, whether that's, again, a school, a health clinic, an animal shelter, and the leadership there, to really talk through the process of, hey, this is what I was considering, this is what made me want to go solar, this is how beautiful it looks on my roof, this is what we're doing now with the savings. We get to provide so many more services to the people that we serve. And you get that message out there. And that's something that everybody can get behind. Who doesn't like the idea of, free energy and allowing that to help nonprofits do a better job?
I think when you say something like get it out there, I think that leaves a lot to the imagination for folks who, we know there's Facebook, we know there's Instagram, we know there's LinkedIn, we know there's websites, we know there are a lot of ways in person to show a video to someone. What are the ways in which you get your videos out there, or maybe better yet, are encouraging those who you work with to get the videos out there?
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think, for the nonprofits, listening to this, who are thinking about their own storytelling. One of the pieces of advice I got early on, which I don't think we've mastered, by the way, but just something that we think about, is the amount of time and energy and money that you spend on creating the video. You need to do as much you need to spend as much time and energy and money promoting the video, right? Because if you spend all this time and energy, and you make this awesome video but you don't get it out there and nobody watches it, then you haven't succeeded, right? And so that's something that we're constantly working on. um, we now have a phenomenal, communications team, which is really just, a handful of staff that, kind of are savvy in the digital space, and really trying to, kind of, when we make a video, get it on, yeah, using social media platforms, using our email newsletter, also getting stories through the news. When we do a solar installation, we are inviting those local elected officials to come speak at that event, and we're inviting the news to come and ideally video the event. So we have been successful in getting a number of our projects featured on the evening news, where they shoot a short video. So that's always really helpful. But for the videos that we create ourselves, it's really about, yeah, using our social channels, also working with partners, right? How do we get, featuring partners who helped make the project successful in the video, so that they'll want to promote it, and just trying to get as many people who care about the work, to know about the video, and to share it.
Yeah, when I was in the Bay Area meeting with you guys, I got to meet and I got to work with throughout the process one of your team members, Tierney Sheehan, who it seems like oversees a lot of this video coordination and just the work that she does to make sure that everything you guys do is documented and documented in very luscious, beautiful video form. That's an important part of your strategic plan as an organization.
It is, and I think, when it comes to clean energy and the just clean energy transition, it's so easy to talk about it and use these terms, but it's a whole different experience to see it. When you're looking at video, we try to document, during the installation, having the installers up on the roof installing the panels. We want video of that. We want video of the completed installation when it looks really nice. We want video of the ribbon cutting events when people are celebrating, because that's, again, when somebody who's not as familiar with solar sees that short video, that's what's going to pique their interest. It's going to expand their imagination to say, oh, okay, oh wow, that's it. Look at how easy that looks, right? Or look at how nice that looks. It creates a more tangible experience there. And to be honest, Matt, I mean, I think the way that we got into video storytelling was really through our start as a crowdfunding organization. When we started these projects, we had to crowdfund for every project. We were raising money through donations. People were donating, $20 to $50 at a time in order for us to build each of these solar projects. And as I'm sure folks are familiar with, Indiegogo and Kickstarter and these types of crowdfunding platforms. When we got started in 2011, these were much more common, right? You'd see Indiegogo campaigns all the time for various things and a lot of charities, but the video is the main thing. If you didn't have a good video, you weren't going to raise the money, right? And so we had to learn, we had to iterate by making a lot of videos and telling personal stories. So that's really, that was how we got started, and I think that's something that we keep as a key part of our organization.
There's a great video that I was able to include in the video that I did, which featured your organization, of one of your very first crowdfunding campaigns, and the video that you put in with that. With your permission, I'd like to include it with the show notes for this episode, if that's okay.
Go for it.
But yeah, it's really a thing of beauty to see how your video has evolved from then to now. But one of the things that I really think it's important to touch on, because you've described getting video of so much, and I think for any nonprofit that's been interested in video, or wanted to dabble in video at all, they might be surprised to hear what your annual revenue is as an organization. Video costs money, and for so many nonprofits, small, medium sized, the big roadblock is budget. But Revolve is not a massive, 8-figure operation. Your annual revenue just cleared $1 million for the first time in 2022. So this video part is something that needs to be done intentionally. And I'd love for you to get into just budgeting, how you budget for video. If you ever, run into, well, maybe we're spending too much. Do we need to dial it back a little bit? What are those conversations like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it has evolved a bit in the earlier days. Um, we had tried to, we would go to the installations. I would go, get up on the roof, and, I'd have a GoPro, and, would do like a time lapse, photo with the GoPro, and try to incorporate that, take as much of the footage we could as ourselves, and then maybe hire an editor to kind of put it together. But over the years, yeah, we've found that, hiring, experienced, videographers and editors, makes a world of difference, and being able to tell that story, in a visual way, and the way that an experienced professional can, use the narrative, the text on the screen, the B-roll, the music to really create an emotional experience, right? I mean, that's ultimately what's happening when you're watching a short video. um and there's an arc to that video that you really want a professional to kind of help you think through. So yeah, we as a small organization have learned that the value of video is extremely important to the work, not only for us to be able to raise money and get the word out about our projects, and ideally find new projects, but ultimately, and this might not be the case for every group, but in our case, we want to be our mission is to be a storytelling organization. Our whole purpose is to raise awareness about clean energy. And the way we do that is by building these projects, but then telling these stories, and hopefully reaching as many people as possible. So to us, the video storytelling is front and center. That's, we do all the work so that we can tell the story, right? Like that's what ultimately we're trying to, our impact is going to be more about how many people we reach with the story, with the good news that clean energy is here and it's benefiting their community, than it is the amount of kilowatt hours that we're producing. Like that's ultimately the difference. But in terms of the budgeting, I mean, this evolves, but we're currently trying to make like 6 really good videos a year. So it's like, okay, let's look at all of our projects and say, if we focus on a really, one of our projects every 2 months, like every other month, let's like, pick one of the projects that we have going on, do a ribbon cutting, get there, tell this whole story and make a really high quality video. We hope, that those are going to be really valuable assets. And again, you have to balance, like, we have I mean, we've got, many, dozens and dozens of projects that we could make videos for, but you also have to balance that with how much time and energy to promote the video and get it out there, right? Like if you make all the videos, but you don't spend enough time distributing them and promoting them, you're not going to get that impact. So at the moment, we sort of think about it as like, okay, let's budget for, um, trying to create a really high quality video every other month. And yeah, we'll see if we can get more resources. We can get more fundraising for our support. If we can get more support for our video storytelling, we would do more.
He is Andreas Karelas. I'm Matt Pearl. This is .org, the podcast about how nonprofits tell their stories. Let me take 30 seconds to tell you about how I tell stories. I was a journalist for many years. I traveled the world, covered the Olympics 3 times, and won national awards for video journalism, mostly for stories about the issues facing our communities and the people and organizations offering solutions. Now I get to work directly with those people and organizations. At Pearl Impact Media, I provide meaningful, memorable video storytelling for nonprofits and purpose-driven businesses. Maybe you want to raise funds, maybe you want to raise awareness, maybe you want to showcase your services in ways only video can do. I work out of Atlanta, but work with clients across the country, and I would love to work with you. So head to my website at pearlimpactmedia.com to schedule a free consultation. All right, back with Andreas Karelas, and I think that is such an important distinction that you just made about how storytelling is actually front and center of your mission. And so it's not something that's really negotiable, and how that really, informs the way that you utilize video specifically. And there's something else that I wanted to get into here, which is that, one thing I haven't mentioned is that you're not just a founder and you're not just an executive director, you're also an author. You wrote Climate Courage, a book which makes the case in a thorough and thoughtful way for reframing the conversation on climate, steering it away from doomsday forecasting, focusing more on the moment of opportunity that we have. And I read it after we met. It's such a powerful book, and it's an empowering book. And I have to imagine that spirit, that idea of reframing the narrative and spreading that tone of positivity and empowerment, I have to imagine that informs the way that you approach video with Revolve and how you market and spread the word with everything that you're doing.
100%. And thanks, Matt, again. Appreciate the kind words. And yeah, I think, when I was writing the book and researching it and looking at a lot of the psychology around how do we change our common narrative around something like climate change? How do people's minds change? One of the things that was really interesting to learn about is um, how people process data and information. And we often think that we can sort of win arguments or sway people's beliefs or understandings or positions with data, right? And we'll look at all the scientific data about the climate crisis, and don't you know that the temperature is right, and that is actually, even though logically it makes sense that somebody could read that data and make an informed decision. Humans are, we're not wired to change our thinking that way, because it's reaching a different part of the brain. It's sort of reaching our rational part of the brain, and what actually changes our beliefs, or allows us to open up our thinking on something so that we could potentially change our belief, is really when you're reaching your more emotional part of yourself, and that's through storytelling. Like, humans evolved sitting around the fire telling stories, right, for eons. That's what we're wired to do, is listen and understand the world through story. And so that's why, storytelling is so key to our work, and it's so key to changing people's minds and getting people excited about clean energy and climate, because unless there's a story that's positive and hopeful that we can and we will and we are already transitioning to clean energy, the doom and gloom story, that tends to shut us down, right? But the optimistic story of, hey, we've got momentum, we've got the technology, we've got the financing, the clean energy transition is at hand. That's exciting. Here's how you can get involved. Here's how your community can benefit from it. That's an empowering story. So we need to get that, and we need to change that narrative. And in order to do that, we just have to show real examples. Look at all these communities that are benefiting from the clean energy transition. Get that story out there, and that will take its own momentum.
I think there are two really valuable lessons in that for nonprofit leaders with organizations across the country. One, it's not just about the substance of your storytelling, it's about the tone, right? And for nonprofits thinking through their marketing and video strategy, tone and narrative and messaging needs to be clear from the top. That's something that when I work with clients, I'm always talking with them about that early because I need to know that as their hired video storyteller, right?
Mm.
What's the message you're trying to get across? What are you trying to convey? What's the tone? What's the energy level that you want to showcase here? And and I think for nonprofits who haven't figured that out yet, exactly what they want, they might not be ready to jump into video. I think you have to jump into video with a certain sense of understanding as to why you're doing that and
Mm.
the tone that you want to strike and the messaging that you're trying to hit. The other thing that we've talked about somewhat tangentially in this conversation, but that I think is really, really valuable is, with each video that you do, there is the value in the video itself, but there's also the fact that by this point, you're more than a decade in right now, you have a library of video.
Mm.
So anybody who wants to learn about Revolve can scroll through your social media. They can go, I'm not sure if you have a YouTube page. I would
We do.
imagine you do.
Yep.
Yep. So you've got a YouTube page, you've got LinkedIn, you're all over the place on social media. And anyone who wants to know about what you're doing and the effect you're having can literally go through hours of video and find out. And that's a very, very valuable thing, that it's not just a one-off project that you've invested in. It is a strategy that is now, a decade in, showing dividends not just in the individual videos, but in a larger library.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And again, we really learned this back in our, when we got started, through our crowdfunding days, right? I mean, if a picture is 1,000 words, right, then think of what a video is in terms of sort of resonating with your audience, getting people to understand your work and what you're about, and the impact you're trying to have. And again, we just learned early on, doing one crowdfunding campaign after the other, that if you really do want a campaign to be successful, if you want it to reach people, and if you want to be able to successfully fundraise and support your work, the quality of the video, the storytelling, the message, that all has to resonate. You have to really think clearly about what the audience is that you're reaching. What are they? Why would they care? Why do they care about your cause? Why do they care about this thing that you're trying to change in the world? And you can tell that really well through story. And I think it's important too. I think one of the things that we've learned that we really emphasize here in our storytelling is, um, because Revolve is working with all these different nonprofits and helping them go solar, Revolve is not the main character in the story. It's the nonprofit that they're the hero on the hero's journey, and Revolve is a small role in that. But it's really about these nonprofits that are going solar, why they're going solar, and the impact that they're having in that community. And those are really cool stories to tell, and those are cool stories to hear. People want to hear about them. It makes it much more interesting, and it's empowering the folks that we're trying to serve. So it's an important framing, and something that we think about all the time.
So I'm curious your advice on this. So for nonprofit leaders that they know that they should be getting into video, they know this is a space that they should want to invest in, but they see it as daunting, intimidating, expensive. What is a good way for them to get started, and just what advice would you have so to kind of lessen the discomfort and to maybe you know get past a lot of the preconceptions about video?
Yeah, I mean, I think if folks are worried about how to tell the story, or what's it going to take, I think first of all, there are a lot of good resources available for um, you know learning how to tell your story, how to frame your narrative, how to promote your video once you're done, obviously how to find the right videographer or partner to help you with your work. But really, I think the main thing is just to think about, if you're a nonprofit organization, you're trying to have some type of change in the world, some type of impact, whatever that is. um, So think about the story of who you're trying to benefit. Who benefits from your work, right? Like your nonprofit exists to help someone or some group or make some impact. What's that story? Why is that important to you as a nonprofit? Why does your nonprofit exist? Uh, and think about the beneficiary of your work and allow them to tell their story in their own words. Allow them to tell the story of how your work has benefited them and how that's helping them change their life or help change their community or help change the world. Um, allowing the proof of your work to be visible, and to hear the beneficiaries tell that in their own words. That's that. You don't have to do much more than that. Just if you're doing good work, let the people who are sort of impacted by that work tell how the work has impacted them, and that will resonate.
Well, Andreas, I always enjoy talking with you, and this has been no exception. I have really enjoyed this conversation. Before I let you go, I'm going to ask you that famous last question that all reporters love to ask. Is there anything we haven't touched on that you'd like to add?
Um, I mean, I think just broadly speaking, I think we're living in a time where there's a lot of bad news. There's a lot of scary news, and the way that the media works, we tend to be inundated with negative stories and things that sort of make us want to sort of be glued to the screen and kind of dive into oftentimes like sort of negative news stories and cycles. And I think the nonprofit leaders, who are doing great work in the community, um, this is an important time for you to tell your story. This is an important time to highlight the good news, the importance of giving back and doing well in the community, and also giving donors and giving individuals an opportunity to support your mission, to support your work, because people are people are going through hard times, right? And so for the ability for them to say, people are worried and anxious about the state of the world. So for the ability for your nonprofit to say, here's a way that you can plug in. Here's a way that by you supporting this nonprofit, you can help see the change that you want to see in the world. You can, by support, whatever it is, the local food bank, the local shelter, the local community center. We provide these services to the community. You can play a role, whether that's volunteering, whether that's donating, whether that's supporting this work. Give people that opportunity to do something and get involved in your work, so that they can feel like they're having a positive impact in the world. Hopefully more stories like this will get out there and more people will get involved and roll their sleeves up and help trying to create the change to make the world a better place.
That's Andreas Karelas, founder and executive director of RE-volv. You can find them at re-volv.org, and that's revolve, REVOLV. So re-volv.org. Andreas, thanks so much for your time.
Thanks so much for having me, Matt.
All right, and that does it for episode 2 of .org. If you found this helpful and want others to hear it too, a great rating or review wherever you get your podcasts goes a long way. Please take the time if you can, and check out my work at Pearl Impact Media. Video storytelling can be so beneficial for nonprofits. I'd love to work with yours. Book a free consultation now at pearlimpactmedia.com. All right, friends, I am Matt Pearl. Thank you for listening to .org. We'll see you next time.